Wow, welcome to the show. We're glad that you joined us today. We've got an exciting guest for you. We've got Victor Escalante, and Victor is an NLP expert. He's also an author, speaker, and a coach. And we're so excited to have him here today. He's got some exciting things going on. He's also a seminar partner of mine. We've held seminars every month here in Houston, Texas, and that's where Victor and I are out of, is Houston, Texas. So I'll let Victor talk about Victor, but welcome to the show, Victor.
Glad to be with you, T. Allen.
Absolutely. So tell the audience a little bit about how you help people and who your target audience is.
Well, I am an expert, as you said, in Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Over the years, I've incorporated different modalities. A couple of other big ones is Ericksonian Hypnosis and brain spotting, which is the next generation of EMDR. It's a special technique, or it's a therapy that is used with people with deep trauma.
With deep trauma. Interesting. So how did you come about this, and how did you get started doing that?
That's a very good question. I got started right around the time that Tony Robbins first came out with his first book. That was around 85, if I remember correctly. I heard Tony Robbins doing a radio interview on the radio, and he was going to do an intervention, and he cautioned people to pull over if they were driving, which I was. So he asked the audience to do an internal check to find out how they were feeling. First, identify the feeling, and then give, on a scale of 1 to 10, give it a number. And I was just having a bad day. At that time, I worked in outside sales. And he did a little, probably 30-second intervention over the air. And I was amazed at how it just like that, instantly, it changed my internal state. So I was hooked on the power of NLP. So in time, I ended up finding a gentleman that I did an apprenticeship training with him to where we were actually doing NLP one-on-one with his clients. Then I went on to become certified, studied at a formal institute, studied NLP, and then I became a master and then a postmaster and then a trainer in NLP, and the rest is history.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a short story how you've actually helped somebody overcome some challenges or some fears?
Well, NLP is a very fast technology. It's called a psychotechnology, whereas traditional psychology is called a psychotheology. The difference is that NLP is very technical. It's like you take a person and you first identify what it is that they're doing with their brain to produce the problem state that they're generating, so that you can tweak their mind and play with the different knobs of the brain, and then make the problem disappear, and then do some hypnotic work. This is where the work of Milton Erickson comes in, because NLP has its roots in Ericksonian hypnosis, and I wanted to know the history of it, and I wanted to go straight to the source. And that's how I got involved in Ericksonian hypnosis.
So tell the audience a little bit about your background. You went to a pretty prestigious institute when you first got started.
I went to the Institute of NLP in Austin, and I've been actually to 3 different institutes over the years.
And so some of these stories that you've shared with me where you've actually worked in the prison system, right? And
yes, I was a consultant with the West Texas Corrections Department for over a decade, and I worked literally with thousands of individuals to help them overcome the mindset of being in the criminal justice system. Let me tell you how it started. This is an interesting story. One of my students was a probation officer inside the system, and she saw the power of NLP because I was tutoring her. She had been through practitioner training, but it really takes practice, and it takes working with someone that has mastery to be able to know how to do it. And so I was tutoring her and helping her to do interventions, and she saw the fast results. And so she invited me to do a pilot program. This was going to be 8 weeks. If it worked, there was a potential to do more work. If it didn't, we shook hands and we were going to be friends. So after about the third week, this was for like an hour-and-a-half session with, back then we were working with gang members and with people with chemical dependency problems. After about the third week, we started to see changes in people, the way they dressed, the way they talked, the way they were respectful. And from there on, it's like we just had some phenomenal results in how people's lives were literally transformed in a relatively short time.
Wow, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that story with us. So what are you finding that some of the challenges that people are having in society today that you've helped them with or overcome? What are some of those things that you're finding that they need help with?
Well, I can truthfully say, having worked with thousands of people, it's like the faces change, but the problems are pretty much the same. They're pretty universal. You've got a lot of issues that created a mindset or programming from childhood, from very abusive, dysfunctional families. And I don't know about you, but I came from a dysfunctional family. In fact, one of the things that really attracted me to NLP was the ability to make personal change. And so you look at a lot of the patterning that was set up as children, because as adults, you basically have you have children and adults' bodies that they really don't have the skills. They really don't have the emotional competencies or the emotional intelligence to be able to succeed in their career or their profession.
Wow, that's a pretty big statement there. But so you provide several solutions. I mean, you work with C-level executives, you work with CEOs, you work with speakers.
Yes.
Describe a process that you would take somebody through. Let's say a speaker, maybe they're having a imposter syndrome or the fear of being on stage. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Let me talk about that. Recently, I worked with a lady. This is a health coach, and she was wanting to succeed, like everyone that's in business, to help others. But she was intimidated in front of groups, and so I patterned that particular internal mindset to find out where did that come from. And basically, it came from my childhood, to where there was some issues that were programmed, to where even though she was highly skilled, she had the skills, she had the knowledge, but emotionally she would get intimidated in front of groups. Now, mind you, these are friendly groups. These are not hostile groups like the ones I faced in working with the corrections department. I ended up enjoying so much working with offenders that it was almost a rush and a challenge to be able to turn these people's lives around and to get into this dance of power plays, to where I could play their game and follow them, but then I could pull them out and show them the dysfunction of the game that they were playing. So back to this lady. This lady was missing certain pieces of powerful states in the right context to be able to feel that success at the appropriate time. So let me break it down in plain English. We all have the necessary resources, but we lack the access to them at the appropriate time. So she already had a lot of successful states programmed into her, but under pressure, she couldn't access them. So all I had to do was to create that artificial stress and then trigger those success states. It sounds simple, and it is, once you know what you're doing.
Awesome. So you managed to help her overcome that challenge. And so
anyone that's afraid of public speaking, I can remove their phobia of public speaking in 15 minutes or less, or they owe me nothing.
That's amazing. That's quite the guarantee. So
and that's one of the greatest fears that people have.
Absolutely. So I've seen you at work, and I've seen you fix people right before my eyes, and you've actually helped me when I spoke at Harvard. So I know
that was a lot of fun.
I know you're the real deal. So absolutely. So what is your magic? If somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, you know, I've got these challenges," what can you do? What can you look them in the eye and tell them?
First I have to get a little history because typically it's not anything that I haven't already dealt before. At this stage in my life, I pretty much have seen just about every dysfunction you can imagine, and some really, really deep trauma. I'm talking trauma that would keep people in therapy for years, that in a matter of 3 or 4 months, it's like they were well, and some of them could even get off medication. So it's just determining how the pattern or the limitation was set up, and then just dismantling that and making sure that there is a new program to replace the old one. As simple as that. It's kind of like removing an old software and installing a new up-to-date software. Because the mind has been likened to a computer, and it's really a good metaphor.
Absolutely. So I understand that I know you've been published before, but you're coming out with a new book. So tell us a little bit about that book.
I'm pretty excited about this book, and to those of us that are listening, you actually deserve the credit for this, because you're my publisher, and it was through your efforts that I was able to accomplish this lifelong dream of mine, is to publish a book. There's 3 things that every man should do: is build a house, have a child, and publish a book, as the saying goes. So 2 out of 3 is not bad. I still have to build my house. So my book is called Courageous Living. It's the biography of a very interesting man. I met this gentleman. He's a former Jesuit scholar back in 2005. And we just hit it off, and we had a lot of things in common. Deep spiritual man who has pretty much done it all. If there was an interesting man, this man, I'm telling you, is one of them. And so I wanted to tell his stories. And years ago, I came up with the idea. That was about the time that the movie or the book had come out, Juices with Maury, where a journalist had gone back to his college professor, and because his philosophy, I think it was a philosophy professor, and every week he would make the trip to have these philosophical conversations with his old professor, and it literally transformed his life, turned it around. He was having trouble with his career, with his marriage, and it turned it around, and that's the kind of man this man is. So I wanted to have something like that, and I was just ahead of my time. So last summer, I proposed that we write his biography and tell his stories, and finally, after many months of long hours, sometimes starting at 3 in the morning and going into late in the night, we were able to pull it off.
Awesome. So what do we got? What's the release date?
The release date is going to be within 2 to 3 weeks is the target date.
Awesome.
We got all the design, all the copy is done. We're working through the editing process, so we're fast tracking it, because unfortunately, my friend has come down with brain cancer, and he we don't know how much longer he's got to live, but I want to get that book in his hands so he can see his legacy and how he's going to be immortalized.
Absolutely, and it's an honor to be participating in that too. So thank you very much. So if people are interested in getting a hold of that book, how can they do that?
They can contact me. They can email me. They can write to Escalante, ESCALANTE, .Victor, VICTOR, @yahoo.com.
Great. Well, thank you again for being a part of the show. We really appreciate it, and we're really excited about how you're helping people out there overcome their challenges and overcoming their issues. So thank you very much.
Glad to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So there you have it for this version of the show. We'll see you the next time.